There's a moment in every man's life when everything shatters. Not when she leaves. Not when you see another man's name flashing on her phone. No, the real fracture happens when you realize that all those years of being the nice guy, of being polite and agreeable, never made anyone truly desire you. You've been nothing more than a bench warmer in your own story. And what cuts deeper than betrayal is the day you look in the mirror and admit you've never once been seen as a real man. Society taught you to be accommodating, to overshare, to prove your worth through endless loops of effort and validation. But here's the raw truth. Women are not obsessed with the man who pours out his soul on demand. They are obsessed with the man they cannot control. The man who makes them shiver with equal parts fear and hunger. So what do you really want, love or respect? Because you can't beg for both. Machiavelli once said, "If you cannot be both loved and feared, then it is far safer to be feared." In relationships, that translates into a single word: mystery. And the man who masters mystery doesn't just get attention, he commands obsession. Let's face the wound most men never dare to admit. You live in a world where women are surrounded by endless streams of likes, comments, and sweet messages from countless men lined up for a sip of attention. In that environment, your compliments, your generosity, your unconditional care are worth no more than a drop from a public faucet. She might sip from it, but she will never value it. Here is the first principle you need carved into your bones. Scarcity creates value. And this isn't about cheap tricks, ghosting, or fake aloofness. This is about living with real standards. A man with his own mission, his own rhythm, does not function as an emotional switch she can flip whenever she wants. And when she realizes that your attention is not free, her brain begins to shift. Suddenly, she moves from passively receiving to actively working to earn it. Psychology calls this the principle of reciprocal emotional investment. Humans only value what they have to work for. If she sends you a casual text and you instantly reply with paragraphs of excitement, you're teaching her one thing: her attention is worth more than yours. And in that moment, the power flips. You're selling yourself cheap. Machiavelli knew this centuries ago. He wrote that power does not lie in what you give away. It lies in what you hold back. In love, power is not always saying yes. Power is knowing when to say no. A man of real substance is not the one who drops everything to soothe every minor mood swing. He is the one who makes her stop and ask herself, "Am I truly worthy of him?" This is the turning point most men miss because they're terrified of losing her. They think if they don't respond right away, if they don't flatter her constantly, she'll disappear. But the paradox is this: it's the very fear of losing that ensures you lose. The moment she feels your attention is guaranteed, she stops valuing it. Think about the last time you were genuinely obsessed with something. Was it a gadget that was hard to find? A book that left questions unanswered long after you finished? A stranger whose motives you couldn't quite read? That gap between what you know and what you desperately want to know, that's where obsession grows. Women are no different. Your job is not to be the sweetest guy in the crowd. Your job is to become a question mark, to make her look at you and silently wonder, what is he really thinking? Has he chosen me, or am I only one of his choices? That uncertainty is not manipulation. It's the truth. You have the right to choose, and your choice is not cheap. And here's the beauty of it. Once you live this way, the entire game flips. She stops testing you and starts testing herself. She goes from waiting for your texts to checking if you're online. From assuming you'll always be there to fearing she might lose you if she doesn't step up. And when that fear of loss creeps in, desire ignites like fire. There's a brutal truth most men refuse to face. We are addicted to emotional safety, and that addiction kills attraction before it even begins. We think if we make her comfortable, if we listen endlessly, if we're always there when she calls, then she will love us. But comfort does not create desire. Comfort creates friendship. And no woman lies awake at night unable to breathe because of a friend. In psychology, there's a concept called tension, that mix of being pulled in and yet uncertain. That tension releases dopamine, the very chemical that fuels obsession. Think about when you watch a movie and don't know how it ends. Your brain keeps flooding you with dopamine to keep you glued to the screen. Attraction works the same way. If you make everything predictable, her brain shuts the switch off. This is why Machiavelli was right when he said, "Men are driven more by the fear of loss than by the hope of gain." In relationships, this means you can never let her feel she has you locked down. The second she's certain, you stop being the fire in her veins. You become the couch cushion she leans on. And men were not born to be cushions. You see this everywhere. A guy goes on a few dates, then pours out his whole life story, confesses every emotion, sends messages that read like novels. He thinks this is honesty, depth, intimacy. But to her, it's the end of the game. Nothing left to discover. Nothing left to chase. No mystery, no obsession. Now picture the opposite. A man who opens the door, but not all the way. He shares a fragment of his world, then lets the silence breathe. He lets his eyes carry the weight words don't need to. She leaves the meeting wondering, what has he been through to become that kind of man? Why didn't he explain more? That gap in knowledge pulls her deeper. Men today confuse intimacy with self-exposure. Real intimacy is not laying your soul bare on day one, it's revealing yourself in layers over time. Each layer is a reward, and like all rewards, it only matters if she feels she's earned it. Remember this, you're not manipulating, you're pacing. A great song doesn't blast all the high notes in the first seconds. It builds, it rises, it pulls you higher until the climax makes you feel alive. If you unload all your attention, care, and sacrifice at once, you've ended the music before it even starts. This requires patience, the very thing most men lack. Patience means enduring silence without panic. It means sitting inside uncertainty without scrambling to fill it. Most men can't. They flood her phone with messages to calm their own fear. But the man with presence, he smiles inside that silence, and he lets her step into the void. Think back to the arcade game, Pac-Man. If you run straight into the ghosts, you're dead in 3 seconds. But if you wait, grab the power pellet, and move with timing, you flip from prey into predator. Dating works the same way. Don't be Pac-Man the fool. And once you grasp the difference between comfort and attraction, between forced closeness and strategic mystery, you'll understand this. Your job is not to make her laugh every minute, nor to be the sweetest guy she's ever met. Your job is to hold your center stand tall inside silence and let that silence create waves in her mind she can't escape. There's a deadly mistake men make over and over. They rush the outcome. They rush to get her confirmation. They rush to make things official. They rush to hear the 3 magic words, "I love you," as if it's a diploma that certifies their worth. But here's the harsh reality. Anything that comes too fast also disappears too fast. Anything forced never ripens sweet. In psychology, this is called saturation. When emotions are dumped too quickly, the brain doesn't feel excited, it feels overwhelmed. Machiavelli warned of this centuries ago. Power lies not in showing all your cards, but in forcing others to keep guessing. Imagine sitting at a poker table. If you throw down your entire hand at the start, the game is over. But if you reveal card by card, building suspense, every player at the table leans in. Love is the same. Pour everything out too soon, and you end the game before it even begins. Women won't say it out loud, but they crave rhythm. A captivating song isn't all high notes. It isn't all silence either. It's the rise and fall, the tension and release. A relationship that sparks obsession has that same rhythm, sometimes close, sometimes distant, sometimes revealing, sometimes quiet. That ebb and flow keeps dopamine firing. And dopamine is the chemical glue of obsession. Look around and you'll see it everywhere. The guy who courts like he's in a 100-meter sprint non-stop, texting fast declarations of love, promises about the future on the second date he's the first one left behind. Why? Because he made everything predictable. Meanwhile, the man who steps with patience, who knows when to pause, who gives a little, then pulls back a little, that's the man who haunts her thoughts. There's a psychological concept called intermittent reinforcement. The most addictive reward isn't the one that comes every time, it's the one that comes unpredictably. A late-night text after 3 days of silence. A deep look followed by calm indifference. That unpredictability makes you a book she cannot put down. Weak men can't handle waiting. They panic if they don't check in, if they don't reassure, if they don't hear from her. Strong men know the truth. Silence is communication, distance is seduction. They don't beg for attention. They let the space itself do the pulling. Think about the last time you were addicted to a series. It wasn't because it handed you every answer in the first 5 minutes. It was because each episode gave you just enough to keep you guessing, to keep you hooked, to keep you coming back. Relationships work the same way. Don't ever let her read your entire script in the pilot episode. And here's the crucial difference: authenticity versus overexposure. Authenticity is revealing pieces of yourself at the right time in the right measure. Overexposure is dumping your entire soul at her feet, begging for her mercy. A real man is authentic, but with rhythm. He gives her something real, but not everything all at once. And let's laugh for a second. Men think women want Netflix and chill. The truth, women want Netflix and cliffhanger. They want to finish every moment with the thought, damn, what happens next? And you are that cliffhanger. Once you master this, you'll realize something profound. Your power isn't in how much you give, but in when you choose to give it. Rhythm is everything. Too much too soon kills desire. Too little too long kills connection. But the right cadence, mystery and revelation, silence and spark makes you a song she can't stop replaying, a melody that lingers long after the music fades. Here's the truth. Most men never want to hear. You don't get rejected because you weren't sweet enough or understanding enough or romantic enough. You get rejected because you lack masculine identity. In a world where thousands of guys copy and paste the same good morning beautiful texts, like a discount script, the only thing that separates you is the one thing no one can fake: your core. Women have a radar for this. They might be drawn to looks, but long-term desire locks onto presence. And presence comes from a man with a center. A man who isn't rattled by her mood swings, who doesn't lose himself when she tests him, who doesn't beg to be accepted like an employee applying for a job. He stands inside his own world and invites her in. He doesn't grovel for permission to exist in hers. This is where Machiavelli's wisdom echoes again. A ruler must be both lion and fox. The lion is strength, resolve, directness. The fox is cunning, adaptability, subtlety. A real man knows when to be bold and when to be quiet. He never sells out his identity just to secure affection. And this is exactly where modern men collapse. They believe the way to keep her is to surrender everything, to soften every edge, to become an easier version of themselves. But here's the paradox. The easier you are to consume, the easier you are to discard. Edges, your values, your discipline, your mission are what give you weight. You don't need to scream, "I'm valuable." You live by your values, and your silence screams for you. Imagine she tests you with the classic trap. If you really loved me, you'd cancel your meeting to see me, right? The weak man caves. Of course, I'd drop everything for you. In that single moment, he cuts out his spine. But the man with a center, he smiles, looks her in the eye and says, "I love you." but I will never betray my mission. If you want a man who abandons everything easily, that man isn't me. That's not stubbornness, it's clarity. And clarity is magnetic. Psychologists call this frame control. Whoever controls the frame controls the reality. If you let her force you into her frame, you've already accepted the role of supporting character. But when you hold your own frame, she has a choice: step into it or step away. And here's the twist: the very act of choosing makes her crave you more, because humans always chase what has standards. Think of it like this: a man without a frame is like a dive bar on happy hour. Everyone walks in, drinks are free, nobody cares. But a man with a frame is like a private club in Manhattan dress code. Enforced, not everyone gets in, and that exclusivity makes people line up around the block. And this is the truth you must carve into your soul. Women don't just want love. They want to be swept into the orbit of a man who is living for something bigger than love. They don't want to be the center of your world. They want to be invited into a world that already has a center. When you build that masculine identity through mission values and discipline, you'll realize you don't have to hold on to her. She will hold on to you. And when you live this way, you stop fearing the loss of any woman. Because you've found the one thing no one can ever take from you: self-respect. By now, you've probably realized something painful. What you've been missing all these years wasn't clever. Pickup lines wasn't a perfect texting strategy, wasn't flowers or fancy dinners. What you've been missing is your spine as a man. The core that cannot be borrowed, cannot be copied, cannot be faked. And it hurts, doesn't it? Because deep down, you see how many years you threw your strength away, trading it for crumbs of attention that were never worth it. But understand this: the very fact that you feel that pain means you're still alive. That pain is proof there's something left to wake up. A man cannot afford to drown in predictability and cheap validation, in begging for affection. You were not born to orbit someone else's life. You were born to become the center of your own, and those who are worthy will be drawn into your orbit. Make no mistake, this awakening will not make life easier. It will make life sharper. You may lose relationships. You may face blame, misunderstanding, isolation. But in that solitude, you will find the one thing that cannot be stolen: self-respect. And once you stand on that foundation, everything else, love, admiration, even the kind of desire you never thought possible, will follow. So if tonight, as you hear these words, you feel a fire flicker in your chest, don't keep it to yourself. Because out there, millions of men are still asleep, still kneeling before things unworthy of them. If you've woken up, reach back and wake another. Share this. Subscribe, not as a fan, but as a brother in arms. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about getting love. It's about building a generation of men who stand tall, hold their center, and live as if the world still has something worth protecting.